K9 German Shepherd gets slapped by shelter worker. What he does next will break your heart. He was just a number to them. Locked behind metal bars, forgotten in a corner, and treated like a burden. But when a frustrated shelter worker lashed out and slapped this once proud K9 German Shepherd across the face, no one expected the reaction that followed. What this brave dog did next didn't just shock the staff. It changed everything. This is a true story of pain, patience, and a kind of strength only a loyal dog could show. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. We bring you emotional, real-life stories like this one that show the courage of animals and the power of compassion. The shelter was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Rain tapped softly against the tin roof, and inside Kennel 9, a German Shepherd named Rex lay curled in the farthest corner of his cage. His fur, once thick and dignified, was now dull and patchy, the result of stress, cold, and neglect. He was only 7, but the years of military K9 service, followed by abandonment, had aged him beyond recognition. His ears twitched at every sound, but he never barked. He had stopped barking weeks ago. The shelter staff called him the Silent One. They knew he was ex-military. The scars on his back and the faint tattoo inside his ear made that clear, but no one had bothered to find out more. Rex had become part of the background, just another unwanted dog. That was, until Marcus showed up. Marcus Davis was a mid-30s shelter employee, stocky, overworked, and underpaid. He wasn't cruel by nature, but life had worn him down. That morning, he was in a foul mood. He'd gotten into an argument with his girlfriend, the heater in his truck had gone out, and now the coffee machine at the shelter was broken. It wasn't the dog's fault, but when Marcus opened Rex's cage to clean it, Rex didn't move fast enough. He flinched, but stayed in place, too exhausted to care. Marcus snapped. "For God's sake, move!" he shouted, and in a flash of frustration, his hand shot out. The slap echoed louder than expected in the concrete room. Rex didn't growl, he didn't bark, he didn't even flinch. He simply looked up at Marcus, slowly, deliberately, with eyes that didn't hold anger or fear. They held something else, grief. It was that look that made Marcus freeze. Rex's gaze didn't accuse him or hate him. It was the kind of look that asked a silent question. Why? And for a moment, Marcus couldn't breathe. He stepped back from the kennel, heart racing, suddenly ashamed. "Jesus," he muttered, rubbing his hand, now tingling from the slap. "I didn't mean to—" But Rex had already turned away, curling back into himself like nothing had happened, as if this too was normal. Marcus stormed out of the room, but he didn't forget those eyes. All day long, they haunted him. During lunch, during cleanup, even during his drive home in the rain. He saw them again while brushing his teeth. The sadness, the acceptance. It was around midnight when Marcus opened his laptop. He typed in K9 Military German Shepherd Tattoo Lookup. A few clicks later, he found it. The number inside Rex's ear matched a registry. Rex, K9 Unit Bravo 6, Iraq. He had served 2 tours, detected explosives, saved 4 soldiers from a roadside bomb. One of them had been Marcus's own cousin. Marcus stared at the screen, stunned. The next morning, he didn't go to work right away. He stopped by a pet store first. He bought a new bed, some treats, and a collar with a name tag that read Rex. When he arrived at the shelter, the rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. Rex was sitting up when he entered Kennel 9. As if he knew, Marcus dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry, boy," he whispered. "You deserved better." Rex didn't move at first, but then he took a single step forward, then another, and finally, he rested his head on Marcus's shoulder. That was the moment everything changed. And what happened next would leave the entire shelter speechless. Word spread fast in the shelter. By noon, every employee knew that Marcus Davis, the same guy who rarely smiled, who once said dogs were just animals, had bought a bed, treats, and a collar for a dog no one thought he even noticed. But what really shocked everyone wasn't the gift. It was how Rex responded. For the first time in weeks, Rex stood at the front of his kennel. He didn't bark, didn't whine, but he stood there alert, watching, waiting. "Is that the same dog?" whispered Kelly, a young volunteer with wide eyes as she passed by. Rex had been practically invisible, but now there was a quiet presence in him, and it wasn't just because of the collar. It was the way he kept glancing toward the hallway, waiting for Marcus. And Marcus did come back. That afternoon, instead of hiding in the break room or rushing through kennel duties, Marcus walked straight to Rex's cage. This time, he didn't bring cleaning supplies or paperwork. He brought a leash and a soft tone. "Hey, buddy, mind going for a walk with me?" Rex didn't hesitate. He walked forward, slow and stiff at first, but his tail gave the smallest wag. It was barely there, just a single sway. But it was something. Marcus clipped the leash on and opened the gate. The entire row of dogs erupted in barking, but Rex ignored them all. He walked beside Marcus like he'd done it 1,000 times. Heel, sit, stay. Perfect military posture. They walked around the small yard behind the shelter, where the grass was overgrown and half the fence was rusted. Marcus didn't speak for a while. He just let Rex walk, stretch his legs, sniff the grass. Then, as if breaking his own silence, he said, "My cousin, you saved him. You know that, don't you?" Rex paused, turned, stared up at him. "Yeah," Marcus muttered, more to himself than to the dog. "Bravo 6. I looked you up, found the report, 4 soldiers, 1 I knew." Marcus sat down on a plastic bench and patted the space beside him. Rex didn't jump up, but he did sit, close enough for Marcus to rest a hand gently on his back. "I was wrong about you," Marcus said quietly. "I was wrong about a lot of things." From a distance, Kelly was watching, her heart clenched as she saw Marcus lean his head down, touching Rex's forehead. And that's when it happened. Rex let out a long, low breath, like someone letting go of years of tension. His body softened, and he slowly leaned his weight against Marcus. It wasn't just a moment of forgiveness, it was the beginning of trust. Inside the shelter, things began to shift. Marcus, who used to race through his shifts, now took time with each dog. He started helping the others learn Rex's military commands, using them to teach the more reactive dogs. Rex became a calming presence, his quiet confidence spreading like a ripple. One day, an older couple came in looking to adopt. They paused in front of Rex's kennel. "He's beautiful," the woman said. "How old is he?" Marcus walked over and smiled for the first time anyone could remember. 7. Retired military. He's not just beautiful, he's a hero. The couple looked at Rex, who was lying calmly on his new bed, eyes alert, ears perked. But before they could ask more, Marcus added, "He's not available, not anymore." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Oh, already adopted?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, by me." There was a pause. Then the woman smiled. "Good. He deserves it." Marcus looked down at Rex, who now wore a clean red collar, tags jingling softly as he rose to stand beside his new owner. Rex wagged his tail, not just once, but twice. They headed home together that night, leaving the shelter behind. But the road ahead wasn't going to be easy, because what neither of them knew was that the past wasn't done with Rex. The first few days at Marcus's house were peaceful, almost too quiet. Rex moved like a ghost through the modest 2-bedroom home in the suburbs of Denver, his nails clicking softly against the hardwood floor, his breath steady, his eyes always watchful. Marcus had prepared a cozy bed for him near the couch, but Rex rarely used it. He preferred to sleep beside the front door, ears alert, always guarding. Marcus tried to build a routine: morning walks before sunrise, meals on a schedule, quiet evenings on the porch. Slowly, Rex began to let his guard down. His eyes softened, his body relaxed. And one evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, he finally dozed off beside Marcus's feet, truly asleep, without flinching at every sound. But peace doesn't always last. It started on the fourth night. A loud bang from a passing car backfiring jolted Rex awake. In a split second, the calm, loyal shepherd transformed. He lunged toward the door, hackles raised, chest heaving. He wasn't barking. He was scanning, assessing, reacting like a soldier in enemy territory. "Rex!" Marcus called out, rushing over. Rex didn't turn. He was frozen in that position, staring through the glass. Then came the low, guttural growl, not out of anger, but panic. Marcus gently placed a hand on Rex's back, not to restrain him, but to ground him. "It's okay. You're safe. It's not Iraq anymore." Those words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus didn't even know why he said them. They just came out. But Rex's breathing slowed. The growl faded. He finally looked up at Marcus, eyes wide and glassy. That night, Rex didn't go back to the door. He curled up next to Marcus's bed, resting his head on one of Marcus's old sneakers, as if needing something familiar to stay grounded. The next morning, Marcus sat at his computer, searching again. He needed to know more. Not just about Rex's military history, but who handled him. Who trained him? Who left him behind? After a few calls and email requests to old military contacts, he found it. Sergeant Colin R. Baxter, retired. Last listed address, Colorado Springs. Marcus stared at the screen. Colorado Springs was only 2 hours away. He looked at Rex, who was now lying peacefully, chewing softly on a rubber toy Marcus had bought him. "You think he remembers?" Marcus whispered. He didn't know, but something in his gut told him the past hadn't been fully buried. Later that week, Marcus took Rex for a drive. Not just around the block, out of town. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. It was a quiet trip, the kind that said more in silence than in words. Rex rested his head near the window, his eyes scanning the road like he was reading the landscape. When they arrived at the address, Marcus hesitated before getting out of the truck. The house was modest, a white single-story with a peeling mailbox. He left the engine running and got out alone, walking up the path and knocking twice on the door. It opened slowly. A man in his late 40s with sun-damaged skin and tired eyes stood there. His left arm was in a soft brace. "Can I help you?" the man asked, voice cautious. "Sergeant Baxter?" Marcus asked. The man nodded. "I think I have someone you used to know," Marcus said. "Wait here." He went back to the truck, opened the door, and softly called, "Rex, come." Rex jumped down. His posture was alert but hesitant, like he was entering a battlefield. Then he saw him. The man on the porch froze. His eyes widened. No way." Rex's tail twitched once, then again. And then, like a floodgate bursting open, he sprinted. Straight to the porch, straight to Baxter. And then, something no one expected, Rex didn't leap or bark. He just pressed his body against the man's legs and looked up with eyes full of questions, longing, and something that looked a lot like sorrow. Baxter dropped to his knees. "Rex, is that really you?" His voice cracked. But before anyone could speak again, a voice from inside the house shouted, "Colin, don't let that dog in here. You know what happened last time." The mood shattered like glass. Rex flinched, and Marcus realized there was more to this story than he had ever imagined. Marcus stood frozen on the walkway, stunned by the voice that had just shattered the fragile moment. Sergeant Colin Baxter, still kneeling beside Rex, looked back over his shoulder toward the front door. His body stiffened. The warmth that had started to fill the space between him and Rex now drained into tension. The screen door creaked open, and a woman appeared. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, crossed arms. She didn't step outside. "I told you," she said coldly, her gaze flicking between Colin and the dog. "I don't want that animal near our home again." Rex shifted his weight, lowering his head as if ashamed, as if he had heard this before. Marcus stepped forward protectively. "Ma'am," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "This dog served your husband. He saved lives." "I know exactly who he is," she cut in. "And I know exactly what happened the night Colin came home in pieces." Colin stood slowly, brushing dirt from his jeans. "Angela, please." She ignored him. He came back from his last mission half-blind in one eye and with a shattered shoulder. And that dog was there, and he didn't stop it. He didn't protect him. Marcus looked between them, trying to process what she meant. Colin sighed, finally speaking. "It wasn't Rex's fault. We walked into an ambush. He alerted like he was trained, but we were already too close. I didn't react fast enough. He tried. God, he tried." Angela scoffed. "You mean you didn't pull the trigger? You blamed yourself, but you also blamed him." Colin looked down at Rex, who hadn't moved. "And that's why I didn't bring him home. I told them to send him away. I thought I couldn't face him." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You let him end up in a shelter, after all he did for you." "I know," Colin whispered. "It's haunted me every single day." Angela crossed her arms tighter. "And it's not just guilt, Colin. You have nightmares. You scream his name in your sleep. You think that won't come back if he stays here?" There was silence. Then Colin stepped off the porch and crouched beside Rex again. "I was wrong," he said quietly, gently stroking Rex's neck. "I pushed away the one soul who would have never left me, not even after everything. And I've punished him for years for something he couldn't control." Rex closed his eyes at the touch, leaning into the familiar voice. Marcus finally spoke. "I didn't bring him here to dump him on you. He's with me now, but I thought you needed to see him. Maybe he needed it too." Angela turned and went inside without another word. Colin stood up. "Would you mind staying for a while? Just in the backyard. I'd like a little more time with him." Marcus nodded. "Of course." They walked around back, where a small patch of lawn stretched out toward a weathered wooden fence. Colin grabbed a folded chair and sat down slowly, his hands still trembling from old injuries. Rex lay beside him, tail brushing the man's boot. Marcus stood by quietly, watching. And then, to his surprise, Colin began to talk. Not to Marcus, but to Rex. "I was in a bad place when we got back. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept seeing it. That alley, that flash, the screaming. You were the only one who stayed calm. You dragged me out when I couldn't walk. You stood between me and the fire. And all I could think to do was erase you." His voice cracked in. "I told myself I was saving you from me. But I see now. I was just scared." A long silence followed. Then Rex, as if understanding every word, nudged Colin's hand with his snout. "Not hard, just a gentle reminder. I'm still here." Colin let out a breath that sounded like it had been held for years. "I don't deserve this forgiveness," he whispered. Marcus stepped forward. "None of us do. That's why it matters so much." As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the fence, Colin finally stood. "He should stay with you. You're what he needs now." Marcus nodded slowly. "But maybe you could visit sometime?" Colin gave a broken smile. "Yeah, I think I'd like that. As Marcus and Rex headed back toward the truck, Rex paused at the edge of the lawn. He looked back at Cullen. One long, quiet gaze. And then he climbed in beside Marcus. But this wasn't the end of Rex's journey. Because something else was coming. Something neither of them were prepared for. 2 weeks had passed since the visit to Sergeant Baxter's home, and Rex had begun to settle into a rhythm again. His eyes no longer darted at every sudden noise. He slept closer to Marcus's bed instead of guarding the door. On most mornings, Marcus would find Rex sprawled on his side, gently snoring, the kind of deep sleep only a safe soul experiences. It was healing, for both of them. But one evening, as the sky turned purple behind the Denver skyline, the phone rang. Marcus almost didn't answer. He was halfway through dinner and had just tossed Rex a piece of grilled chicken, which the dog caught mid-air with surprising grace. But the number on the screen made him pause. United States Military Canine Registry, Denver Division. Marcus set his fork down. "Hello?" "Mr. Davis?" a woman's voice replied. Professional, clipped. "Yes, speaking. I'm calling about a canine shepherd under your care. Rex, registry number 85473B. Marcus stood up slowly. "Is something wrong?" There was a brief pause. "We've been tracking surviving retired canines from Unit Bravo 6. Rex was flagged after you requested his service history. You should know. One of the men he served with, Lieutenant Evan Sloan, recently passed away. In his final weeks, he made a specific request regarding Rex." Marcus glanced at Rex, who was lying near the door, chewing lazily on a bone. What kind of request? He wanted Rex to attend his funeral, said Rex saved his life in Ramadi, and that he always regretted not seeing him again. The funeral's in 3 days, Colorado Springs Veterans Cemetery. We'd like your permission to bring Rex, or if you're willing, for you to accompany him. Marcus didn't respond immediately. His eyes welled. "I'll take him myself," he said at last. "He deserves to be there." After hanging up, Marcus sat down beside Rex, resting a hand on his back. "You remember Sloan, boy?" Rex stopped chewing, lifting his head at the sound of the name. Marcus didn't have to say anything else. Rex's eyes told him everything. 3 days later, the cemetery was still under snow from a late spring storm. The sky was cloudless, but the air bit with cold. Rows of flags waved gently in the breeze, each marking the resting place of someone who had once worn a uniform. Rex walked beside Marcus without a leash, his collar polished, his posture proud. He wore a black canine vest with a small American flag stitched on the back. As they approached the gathering, people began to whisper. "That's him," one soldier said. "The one from Bravo 6. I thought he was dead." But Rex didn't look at them. His eyes were fixed on the casket draped in red, white, and blue. Marcus stepped aside as Rex walked forward alone. A quiet murmur spread through the crowd. The bugle began to play. Rex sat, perfectly still. And then, as the final note faded, he did something no one expected. He stood, walked to the foot of the casket, and lay down. Not in fear, not in confusion, but in respect. A slow, deliberate movement that brought more than a few veterans to tears. A young Marine nearby stepped forward and saluted him. Another man removed his hat, whispering, "God bless you, soldier." When the ceremony ended, Marcus knelt beside Rex and whispered, "You did good." But before they could leave, an older man in a navy coat approached. "You must be Marcus," he said, extending a hand. "Name's Donald Sloan. Evan was my son. I just wanted to thank you." "And him?" Marcus smiled. "It's Rex who deserves the thanks." Donald looked at the shepherd with awe. He was all Evan talked about those last few days, kept a picture of him from a rock. Said Rex wasn't just a dog. He was a brother. He paused, voice trembling. I didn't believe him. Not really. Not until now. As they drove back, Marcus noticed Rex was different. Not anxious, not tired, but calm, centered, like something had closed. But just as they crossed the Denver city limits, Marcus's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He answered. Hello? A gruff voice came through. This is Officer Ramirez, Denver PD. We're contacting you about a possible break-in at the Westport Animal Shelter. Marcus's blood ran cold. That's where I adopted Rex. Right. We recovered a flash drive. There's footage, disturbing footage, of a shelter worker abusing multiple dogs. Marcus's grip on the wheel tightened. Sir, the officer continued, we believe your dog Rex may have been one of them, and we're going to need your help. Marcus looked over at Rex. The past wasn't just following them. It was about to explode. Marcus couldn't sleep that night. The phone call from Officer Ramirez looped in his head like a warning bell that wouldn't stop ringing. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Rex. Not the brave, noble companion he had become, but the broken version he first met in Kennel 9. Silent, flinching, forgotten. At 7:15 a.m. sharp, Marcus arrived at the Denver PD's Animal Cruelty Investigation Unit. The building was nondescript, tucked behind a warehouse district. Inside, it smelled like coffee and old paper. A young officer escorted him into a small room with a screen on the wall and a laptop open on the desk. Thanks for coming, said Officer Ramirez, a tall man with silver in his hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. We recovered security footage from Westport Shelter. It spans about 6 months. We flagged several incidents, some minor neglect, others much worse. Marcus sat, his jaw tight. Ramirez continued. One of the victims was your dog, Rex. We think you should see for yourself. He hit play. The screen flickered to life. The footage was grainy, time-stamped, and eerily silent. Cameras from multiple angles showed the shelter's sterile corridors, the rows of kennels, and the indifferent rhythm of daily operations. Then came Kennel 9. Rex appeared, barely recognizable. Thinner. His fur more matted. His posture a hunched blend of exhaustion and alertness. Marcus felt his throat tighten. In one clip, a worker walked by without feeding him. In another, the same man, Marcus recognized him immediately, slammed a mop handle against the bars of Rex's cage. Rex didn't react. He just stared ahead, motionless. But the worst came 5 minutes later. The man entered the kennel, said something inaudible. When Rex didn't move, the man snapped hard. He struck Rex across the muzzle, the same moment Marcus remembered so vividly. But what the footage revealed was worse. It showed it wasn't the first time. It was routine. 3 slaps in 3 days, all caught on tape. Marcus stood abruptly, fists clenched. Why wasn't this seen before? Ramirez sighed. The cameras weren't monitored. Most shelters don't have the budget or the staff to review footage unless there's a complaint. Marcus turned away from the screen. His stomach churned. Has anyone been arrested? Ramirez nodded. We took Marcus Davis into custody this morning. Marcus spun around, stunned. Me? The officer looked confused, then laughed. No, sorry. Same name, different guy. Marcus Allen Davis. The man who worked at the shelter before you. That's him in the footage. Marcus exhaled sharply. Ramirez continued. We've interviewed several employees. Most said they were afraid to speak up. Said Davis had a temper, and the shelter director ignored complaints. And now? Marcus asked. Now we're pressing charges, and we'd like Rex to be part of the case. Marcus hesitated. What do you mean? He's a witness, Marcus. Not legally, of course, but emotionally. People need to see what dogs like him endure and survive. We're planning a public statement, a press conference. Marcus looked at Rex, who had been lying quietly at his feet. Now the shepherd stood, tail still, eyes sharp. He wasn't afraid. He was ready. The press conference was held outside the courthouse. News crews lined up. Activists held signs. People clapped as Rex stepped onto the platform beside Marcus and Officer Ramirez. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ramirez began, "what you're looking at is not just a dog. This is a survivor. Rex, a retired military canine, saved American lives overseas. And when he returned, he was abandoned, abused, and forgotten." Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. Marcus stepped up. He didn't need a script. "When I first met Rex, he didn't bark, he didn't growl, he didn't beg. He had given up, but behind those tired eyes was something waiting to come back. Loyalty, courage, grace." He looked down at Rex. "And when I slapped him that day, I didn't know I was the second man to fail him." There was a long silence. But Rex forgave me. And he taught me that no matter how deep the wound, healing is possible, with love, time, and the courage to face the past. A tear rolled down a woman's cheek in the front row. Rex stood tall, wearing his old military vest. The crowd erupted in applause. But just as Marcus stepped down, a woman approached him, her face pale, her voice trembling. "I know where the others are," she whispered. Marcus blinked. "Others?" "Other retired canines. From Bravo 6. They weren't adopted. They were sold. Illegally." And in that instant, Marcus knew Rex's story wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. Rex had become a symbol, not just of survival, but of justice. Days after the press conference, tips flooded in. Marcus and Officer Ramirez teamed up with a rescue unit to track down the other canines from Bravo 6. Each one had a story. Some were safe, others still waiting. Rex, now fully recovered, led every visit. His presence gave the others hope. At night, Marcus would watch Rex sleep at his feet and whisper, "We're not done, are we?" And Rex's tail would thump in reply. They weren't rescuing dogs anymore. They were rescuing each other. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Rex's journey reminds us, loyalty can survive anything, even violence.